The second declining factor I chose to talk about is going to be viruses and disease. And so a lot of these viruses and disease actually involve human involvement as well. And the biggest one herpetology is going to talk about is rhinovirus, which has a mortality rate of 90 to 100% among any population of Herpetofauna species living in one area, and is very, very much an important factor to their decline globally. And it can be spread through the ingestion or the exposure to infected water or soil. And it can only take around 3 days to several weeks for an entire population to feel the effects of rhinovirus and to die out. And it can take months, just a couple months, just for a whole entire population in one area to die. And it can affect them through breathing issues, them becoming lethargic, hemorrhages, or internal bleeding. And another one that involves a lot of human involvement is going to be cryptomyosis, which is definitely involved with the human pet trade, with them being taken out of their environment. Depending on a certain Herpetofauna species, around 100% mortality rate can happen around one sitting of Herpetofauna species. It is caused by environmental stressors, and because of exposure to UV radiation, there is a high resistance to fighting off infection among Herpetofauna species, and it can damage their skin and mostly their moisture levels of amphibians, and it is considered to be a fungal pathogen. The last one I'm going to talk about is upper respiratory tract disease, which can be caused by pollution, mostly of plastics that can get stuck inside of Herpetofauna species from them trying to ingest them. It can cause them to be unable to swallow foods, and it can cause nasal pathway issues where it can stop them from breathing and stop them from also eating. So these are just a few viruses and disease that are causing their decline or affecting them in many ways and causing them to have lower populations. The third factor is going to be invasive species, and I find this one to be quite interesting, as invasive species themselves can also be other Herpetofauna species such as the American bullfrog or the red ear slider, which invasive species are essentially species that are not native to a certain environment, and once introduced can cause many different issues such as overeating, such as the American bullfrog in America from the 1900s to early 1980s, or the red ear slider, which because of transportation of the pet trade damaged native turtles' nesting sites on riverbanks, and once red ear sliders were able to be released into the wild, actually overate these native turtles' sites. Or invasive plants that were introduced, such as the red brome in Arizona, which caused massive wildfires to desert tortoises or desert turtles and caused fires to occur among their native food sources and damage their environment. So invasive species are a major declining factor to Herpetofauna species. So the conclusion: how are we affected as humans, and how are the decline of Herpetofauna affecting other species? Well, Herpetofauna actually are very important to medicine, as we get a lot of our medicine from snakes or learning from not spiders, from frogs. Also, larvae such as tadpoles from frogs actually are really good at water filtering our environments. They also stop the overpopulation of many pests, as stated earlier, and if they do continue to decline, we'll see the extinction of many different other species, such as mongooses, who feed off of many Herpetofauna species, or other birds that feed off of many Herpetofauna species as well. And also, with the decline of Herpetofauna species not be able to control pests, we will see diseases such as malaria increasing over the years from mosquitoes that are not being eaten or populations not being controlled. So how can we stop and how can we protect and stop the endangerment and extinction of Herpetofauna? Well, for instance, one is to clean anything that you bring to wetland areas or territories full of Herpetofauna species, washing your hands, stopping the trade of Herpetofauna species, recycling and picking up our trash, being more educated, and being respectful of wetland or other environments that have mostly Herpetofauna species.